FORA.tv. The world is thinking.
Ralph is sort of like what you'd get if you crossed Q from the James Bond movies with Robin Williams, maybe. And just remember that a lot of the prop work that gets done in underwater scenes in James Bond movies is actually real work from Ralph. I put up these pictures here because Ralph is the only man I know who is as adroit at inventing toys as he is terrifying technologies. So this kind of scary cross of toys in the real world I thought was a cute way to introduce Ralph Osterhout. I hope you're feeling better.
Oh boy. I'd love to do that. You have to forgive me, I've got a cold, but I'm going to do my very best. Jump in the Wayback Machine and pull the lever hard about 7 or 8 years ago, and I was a happy guy. I was doing interactive teddy bears and snotty little Barbie dolls that blinked and talked to you, and you could talk to them and smack them if you were inclined. And of course, remote control fart machines, my personal favorite. And then the 9/11 came along. And what happened is I was called by people that I know in the military, because I used to be a defense contractor, basically in the special operations and intelligence community, and they said, we have a problem. And I said, I'm listening. And they said, this is a standard loadout for our most elite, rapid deploying troops. That guy's sporting 140 pounds. Now, he is a ranger in fit level you can't even fantasize. He's wearing the PVS-7 night vision goggles that I am absolutely ashamed to admit that I designed and manufactured in 1985. And they're still wearing the same things. Now just imagine looking through an orange juice can with a 40-degree field of view at night. It's about as much fun as you can have. So the interesting thing is there's an ebb and flow. And one of the times I talked to this, and Richard will remember it only too well, I was talking about the military and toys, and people were going, what? Toys and military have in common. Truly think of tides, because believe it or not, the military poaches from the toy industry, and the toy industry poaches from the military. And I'm going to show you how and why. And believe it or not, it's an interesting kind of perverse symbiotic relationship. Number one is Wired magazine foolishly did an article on me about 7 or 8 years ago, and they asked me if you were to think of one toy that doesn't exist right now that would be unbelievably hot and sell millions of them, what would it be? I said, imagine a tiny helicopter you could hold in your hand and launch it from a coffee table, fly it around the room, and land it back again. Remote controlled, oh my. Well, let me tell you, that magazine hit, and every crackpot from Iceland to Australia called me with his version, ready. So, as you probably know, tens of millions of these little tiny helicopters are on the market now. What you may not know is that the military doesn't sit still. They're not stupid. They see these things, and of course, they're buying them for their kids. So Honeywell, which is a very, very capable company with thousands and thousands of engineers, built their version. I want you to think of, let's take a coaxial helicopter and put it in a giant fruit basket. Let that baby clock in at about 30 pounds, cost $80,000 and $30 million to develop. And the neat part about it is it's for surveillance, intelligence, and reconnaissance. Now I want you to imagine how you're going to sneak up on somebody and surveil them from 200 yards away. What do you think you'll be seeing? So I worked on this little junior right here with another little company, a couple of wild, wild guys in the Midwest that look like human camouflage. Their skin and their hair and their clothes are absolutely the same color, and their mom answers the phone. They all live together. It's the most fascinating thing, but brilliant. One's an aeronautical engineer, one's an electronics engineer, and mom just keeps it all together. So what these guys were doing is building helicopters, but they were flying into them all the time, so I jumped in, and we worked out in putting 8 microcontrollers in a little tiny thin tubular spine up the center with a bunch of sensors. Now, what does it do? This little guy you can pull out of a backpack. It weighs less than 4 pounds. It's 2 feet in length. It's 2.5 inches in diameter. It has 4 blades. They're counter-rotating. And what gives it its phenomenal performance is they are neodymium, boron, iron, rare earth ring magnets. They give you phenomenal torque. One set of the blades, they spin up, and of course, centripetal force causes them to go out. One blade spins up a set and goes at a constant RPM. The other blade, of course, is powered by you. And what ends up happening, they're full collectives. Imagine tiny injection molded parts that are jewel-like, full collectives. Now, you have to understand, the only reason they could do this with such phenomenal capability is these guys decided they needed to control every component to helicopters because they're helicopter maniacs. They bought a machine that cost $200,000, but they got it for $30,000. Why? Because it wasn't working after 30 days purchased by the people who had had it. They took it all apart, bought the machine, kind of licked their chops, and found out 2 dead rats had crawled up one of the oil lines and died. So they cleaned the whole thing out and make, in this tiny facility, all the components to make this helicopter. It wasn't stable, but it was brilliant. So we all worked together in this thing. Let me tell you what it does. You turn it on, you hold it above your head, and you can launch it. It's absolutely safe. You put your hands up and stop the blaze. That doesn't feel good, but it doesn't hurt. Now, what this will do is fly to 11,000 feet. It has a range of 10 miles. It can fly 60 knots. Now, you think about right now, you have a building on fire that you can launch and have this thing hover above it and stream back, because in it are 2 video cameras that can stream back VGA video, 16-bit color in real time. It has a fully encrypted 256 AES encrypted link that allows you to absolutely, with complete security, see what you're looking at 24/7. It also has 3 axes of magnetometers and inclinometers in it, so it's in effect got a precision digital compass, and it knows where the camera's looking, and it knows its position in real time. Oh, I'm sorry, GPS receiver, of course. And as a consequence, this thing can hover and hold its position plus or minus 18 inches, and it's phenomenally capable. It's become more and more important. As we go forward, you're going to understand why I kind of get it up spiritually for this. Robots, everybody knows they're small robots now. This is one that was built by some people at MIT. It's a very good robot, very robust. It's done a phenomenal job in Afghanistan and Iraq. It costs about $120,000 without the accessories. Now, I think that's a wonderful thing. I also believe that if you're going to make things like this, you need to make them very affordable. So, I love toys. I live for toys. Into Toys R Us I went looking for the best of the best and bought every single one of these RC trucks imaginable worth a damn, tore them all apart and examined all their components, and then started to work. But one thing is, if you want to be innovative, you need to go shopping. I trundled on down to Brookstone, bought myself the very best set of beautiful aluminum hand tools you could buy, immediately sawed off all their handles, and put them on this robot that I designed with a 5-axis arm. And what a 5-axis arm does, it allows you to do stuff like this, or go in your back pocket or scratch your head. And as a consequence, I scratched myself. You can see here, with all those little tools, it can go down range. And the way the robots are done now for disarming bombs is they go down range, they'll take a tool down, do something, and then they'll go back and get another tool, and the robot will go back. It goes back and forth with generally a wired link. Everything I did is wireless. I think there's absolutely no place for wires in the battlefield, no place for the wires in the terrorism arena. And so this thing here has 6-wheel drive, 4-wheel independent suspension, and 4-wheel steering, and it'll go virtually anywhere. It has its own GPS receiver, has its own cameras in the handle, has its own cameras in the bottom. It knows where it is at all times, and it's got a range of 10 miles, and it can go over almost any kind of terrain imaginable. It'll also climb some steps. Now, this is something called Firesight. You want to talk about a tough problem? Of all the things I've done in my life, I think when Doug Trumbull, the guy who did all the Star Wars effects, came to me with Dalton Trumbull one time and said, "Hey, we'd like you to quote on making us a dolphin, a mechanical dolphin to come up out of the water, dance on its tail, and do tricks for us." And I said, sure. I was 22, snot knows what. I'd say yes to anything for that kind of money, and I did. And I quoted them $250,000. And they said, "Oh, it's too much, we can't afford it." I'm on my knees praying to God they would have never given me the order. I know now you couldn't do it for $250 million. So the interesting thing was, this is the real tough one. This almost broke my back. Right now, as you probably know, everybody thinks it's people shooting at the U.S. No, 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 no. The vast majority of people that are killed by snipers are Shia killing Sunnis, Sunnis killing Shia, people with grudges, people who want their son to get the public works job versus someone else's son in the neighborhood ad nauseum. So one of the things we found is, how do you protect vehicles? How do you armor them up? What can you do to make people not be killed carelessly? So here's the idea. It's not that big of a problem. Normal time you're going down the road in a city, you're going about 50 miles an hour if it's out in a convoy road out on the outskirts. You're going about 15 to 20 miles an hour downtown. So you're going around 40 feet a second. When you're going 40 feet a second, how do you spot and get on target a weapon to take out a sniper who's killing you and other people instantly? So we developed this system right here, and you can see here this array of cameras. There's 18 cameras. Each one of them has a 22-degree field of view. Each one of them has very high-precision optics. Each module itself has its own processor, its own graphics card, and it has its own compass. It knows where it is. They all have massive parallel connections, and so in case it's wounded, the other things can help take over the functions. What it does is detect, this array here, detects a signature, a visible wavelength signature you can't see in the near infrared for a certain component of the propellant in small arms. And as a consequence, it allows you to spot it, and gets you essentially on target and slew a gun, either remotely controlled or to a gunner in less than 1 second. Now, you can't shoot in 1 second fast enough, because remember, you're going 40 or 50 feet a second. So if my gun's here, by the time I blink and get on target, that threat is over here. But in real time, I designed and built a network called the TactiNet that is all over Iraq and Afghanistan that allows real-time video, voice, moving maps in the world, so every vehicle in the convoy sees in real time where the shooter is exactly, latitude, longitude, elevation. And as a consequence, they can engage as they keep moving. Now, this doesn't thrill you too much because it's about weapons, but it's going to get more interesting as we go along. Here's the Land War Ensemble. Remember the government, it's about big business. Anybody who doesn't think the DOD is big business is asleep at the switch. The government, in its infinite wisdom, awarded GD, in a competitive bid, a $5 billion contract to do the Land War Ensemble. That was the new warrior of the future, faster, quicker, better. What happens? Look at the cost. $500 million. I came along with my finger in my nose and said, you know, I think it would be done a little cheaper. So there's a really nice guy, his name's Keith Alexander, a 3-star, who was heading Army intelligence and now is head of the NSA, which makes the CIA look casual about security. And basically, he said, kid, let's get with the program. God bless him, he still thought of me as a kid. So I developed this system right here and funded it, and it's all over Iraq and Afghanistan. Now, you would think the government, in its infinite wisdom, would basically jump on me like a tramp on a muffin. No. The Land Warrior program's still moving forward thunderously like an aircraft carrier up a stream. But the fact of the matter is, the message I'm going to try to give to you is it's about speed. You cannot move too fast, it cannot be too lightweight, it cannot be too rugged, and it cannot perform too well. Why? Because, gang, terrorism ain't going away. It's simply not going away. This was a thing called a TactiNet. I don't know if we can run the animation. Can you guys do it remotely? If you do, I'll love you for it. Look at, oh, something happened. I don't know where the little thing disappeared. Maybe this is not going to be happy. Basically, what this allowed you to do is when the Army first approached me, they said, we'll put up high points for you. Don't worry about a thing. We're going to set secure towers on the tops of buildings. You'll have all the antennas you need. It'll be beautiful. We're over there for 3 months. All the antennas are gone. All the cables are gone. All the infrastructures are gone. The power supplies are gone. Where are they? Well, they're in Abdul's house powering his TV, or they're sold in the local flea market. So they called me up and they said, hey, sport, we got a problem. We cannot guarantee you security anywhere in Iraq and Afghanistan. So I redesigned the system, and what I did is I made every single vehicle a moving access point. Imagining it's like a moving cellular tower. But this is an ad hoc self-healing mesh network, which means when I want to talk to somebody I can't see line of sight, but I can see somebody over here who might be able to see a line of sight a mile or two away, my data packets go least cost routing, and they find a way to route those packets of data, video, voice, moving map, signals, whatever's going on, essentially in near real time. And within a blink of an eye, they've got the information, they're talking to me. As a consequence, now the entire network is roaming everywhere there were operations. And as a consequence, with 4 hops, we were able to cover 18 kilometers, around 10 miles, in downtown Baghdad near urban canyons. And that's caused a revolution in warfare, because it's put people where you need them, not where you don't need them. And it allows you to rush to sites where people are being bombed that are not military, that are not US, they're local citizens in these wars between various religious factions. Night vision. This is the one that is most profoundly interesting to me, not because I did the PVS-7 way back when and it's still embarrassingly in use. This little beauty right here is $75. You can find it at Costco. I turned it on. It works great. 40 years ago, you'd have touched yourself if you were at war and you could have had that. Now kids have got it, spiritually, of course. Here's a PVS-7. Look at that oinker. It replaced the 3.5-pound PVS-5A. I thought I was doing really good. So here's the interesting thing about it. Every time you see night vision movies, you ever notice everybody's yellow-green? There's a reason, because the P20 phosphor, this yellow-green, is at the exact peak photopic responsiveness of the human eye. It's the color we see the best. So let's forget that. I'm going to show you something really mystical. Now, here's this is something. This is from a company called Goodrich. God bless them. They don't know what they did. The guy who sold them the sensor technology makes the Ponzi scheme guy look like an amateur. This shortwave infrared, it's fascinating, and it is the future, and it's going to revolutionize combat and revolutionize your lives, and I'll tell you how. That is pitch black at night. That you just saw was pitch black at night, right there. It's essentially cloudless, moonless. Take a look. See up in the right in the visible camera? That's what you can see with a very low light, sensitive Sony camera. This is what you see, and you want to know how. Right now, every minute of the day, 24/7, cosmic rays are bombarding the atmosphere and the Earth. So at that ionosphere, troposphere, stratosphere, you've got all these cosmic rays hitting it. And what's happening is they're hydrolyzing ions in the upper atmosphere and kicking out photons, but they're wavelengths you can't detect. The eye can't detect, and night vision can't detect. So let's go to the next one, hopefully. Let's try that. Now, let's look at smoke and haze. It is absolutely obscured to night vision. You cannot see a thing. But guess what? There's a visible camera up there, right? And there you are looking through smoke and haze right now. It's profound. Now, you don't say, you know, I'm not a soldier. I'm not going to war. Who cares? We're going to get into that in a minute because we really need to change the world with this one. Next thing. Okay, I want you to understand something here. Do not think that the government isn't smart, they don't know how to spend money, and they don't want to do the right thing. They do. Look at this guy. 35 million bucks, it's a beauty, isn't it? Look at the shape of it. Now, you think about this. Has anybody ever worn anything on their head? Why do you think bicycle helmets weigh ounces, not pounds? There's a reason for it, because you can't stand much. On the PVS-7 oinker that I told you I did, and I have to admit it, you have to wear a beanbag of lead on the back of your helmet to counterweight the mass of that because it gives you unbelievable migraines when you're marching around in the dark for hours. So now we're going to put shortwave infrared, according to this one, thermal imaging so you can see body heat in the dark, right? All this good stuff, and shortwave infrared like I'm talking about, which is a beautiful thing, and put all this optics in this helmet. Now, I don't know, but I got an idea where this design came from. Now, please feel free to tell me you're wrong. Look again. Okay. So we know the Army goes to the movies. I have a little different feeling about it. This is a current thing that I'm not done with. I'm not doing, quote, military defense contracting now. I spent 5 years in counterterrorism, but I ostensibly finished about October 1, but I'm working on something that I'm passionate about, and that's this and this. Whoops. What's important about this concept here is look how tiny it is. It's monocular. It only covers one eye, so you are water clear. And as you know, if you put your thumb in front of your eye right now and touch your eyelashes, you notice your thumb looks transparent because you're binocular. This does not work for one-eyed people, but there's not that many one-eyed soldiers around. Here's the interesting part. What this does is have a SWIR sensor in it, shortwave infrared, and there's a company called Psionics that is going to revolutionize vision in every aspect of our life because they're doing it with silicon, which is not doable today. Silicon is transparent to infrared. It goes right through it like wind through a duck. So it can't detect it. These guys have used secret sauce and put on special coatings that have made what's called black silicon. And it's a revolution because it can allow you to have a tiny sensor. You can have this device. So in that little thing you see up on his head right there is his digital compass, his digital inclinometer, his GPS receiver, his full vision system, tiny, less than 1 pound. But let's go one step further. Right now, if I'm a soldier, I'm as good as it gets. I'm a SEAL team operator or Delta, the creme de la creme. They're all world-class triathletes virtually. This guy here can do something none of them can do. Right now, if I were to take incoming fire from the tip of the pier down there, I couldn't tell you where it is. If I finally spotted them through very, very high-powered binoculars, I'd have to try to figure out where I am, get out a grid map, and try to say, this guy's not going to have this problem. See this? This is a very strange thing. I want you to imagine 3 50-cent pieces stacked on top of each other. And that strange silver ring is the actual aperture. That's a lens. This is what you call folded imager. And light comes out to this ring here and folds internally against precision diamond-turned surfaces in aluminum that are flashed in palladium so they don't oxidize. And it goes out the back of it to a sensor that is shortwave infrared. And right here you have a laser rangefinder that allows you to look at someone up to a kilometer away by putting the crosshairs in your optical train. Literally, bang, it geolocates by throwing a laser against them, telling them the latitude, longitude, elevation, and range within plus or minus 1 meter to a kilometer. Now you have precision information to get to anybody anywhere. Imagine what that's like in real life. So where are we going with this nonsense, and why is it important to you? You can say, I'm not here to hear about the military. I'm not here to hear about the defense and weapons. Let me tell you something. Did you read the paper this morning? Did anybody watch the news? Show of hands. Oh, you didn't? Oh, too bad. Maybe that's good. 2 police officers lost their lives in a bank in Oregon this morning when a bomb blew up and took them out. Second of 2 bombs. They found one, didn't find the other. It was too late. How many people remember the disaster in Katrina? Show of hands. Do you remember with all of our technology and all our satellites, nobody knew where the damn dams were broken. No one knew where the stranded people were. No one knew where to take assets and deploy them to help people. So imagine you have a box, and if you're a photographer, you know what a Pelican or a storm case is, right? You pull this out of the back of a squad car or a fire department's car, and you have one computer with a larger screen and some small ones here, and you have that tacticopter. And what do? You look at a map and you just download into this exactly where you want this to fly to and what altitude. It now flies and hovers continuously for 1 hour. It becomes a communications high point, streaming back live video in color to you during the storm. You can launch them and fly them over anybody's house and stream live video back to them. Let's go one step further. You remember seeing yesterday the horrible image of somebody jumping out of the 9/11, the Twin Towers. The same thing happened in the Hilton Hotel in Las Vegas. People were trapped and they couldn't get out and people jumped. I personally witnessed 23 people jump out the windows one time in a hotel in Seoul. They couldn't get out. So imagine you take this little guy that's $5,000 in quantity. It's got an island on the bottom. It's got a carabiner, and it's got a Kevlar ribbon that deploys off of it. And this guy flies up the outside of the building, hovers 3 feet outside. You reach out the window, disconnect the carabiner from the ring. It will not hurt you, and it will fly off and hover. You wrap it around the leg of a bedpost, a chair, or whatever, and you've got a friction brake on it and a loop that you put underneath your arms. And you'll go out and descend at 5 feet per second. I think there's use in the real world for technology that you and I paid for. Here, I don't need to tell you, I just told you what happened this morning. We need affordable, low-cost robots that are effortlessly simple and remote controlled and can be deployed in minutes, not hours. And here's my personal one. 50% of all the injuries in warfare right now in Iraq and Afghanistan are to the eyes and to the ears. More importantly, past 60 years of age, half the population suffers from macular degeneration. A huge percentage of people, as they get older, have the genetic disability called retinitis pigmentosa. And I'm nearly finished, and I want to tell you why this is important. This is what a person with retinitis pigmentosa sees on the left. They have no night vision. They can't see virtually anything, unless they had a light looking at that pinhole vision they have. Imagine we could do something there to open up their field of view, to give them a profoundly larger sense of what's around them. Let's go one step further. Macular degeneration. This is what it looks like. This is normal. This is what it looks like. The fovea is essentially degenerated and gone. It cannot be regenerated. It cannot be cured. Now, I want you to think about something that I'm going to end this discussion with. You've learned how we can detect shots 360. You probably don't know, and I'm delighted to tell you, I can buy you right now a very high-resolution camera sensor with its own circuitry, making it a complete camera on a single piece of die, silicon that's 2 millimeters square. I can bond the lens onto it so no bigger than a pencil eraser. Now imagine I put multiples of those in the frame of a wraparound Oakley blades. Imagine in that frame are very fast 32-bit, ultra-low power 45 nanometer processors that can do parallel processing in warp speed at 500 megahertz speeds for each one, yet only draw enough power to be powered by a button cell, and it is there and real. So imagine what we do is you go into the eye doctor, he has you look at the machine that he uses to check your vision, but it's slightly different. It scans your retina. It looks for the areas that are not operational, like the fovea or any areas where there's damage. Maps your eye. Machine outputs it to a machine over here that literally, within a matter of a day or two, produces inexpensively a tiny holographic piece of film, thickness of a piece of copy paper. And it gets bonded to a curved piece of plastic, a 6-base curve inside a pair of glasses. And you have a tiny OLED, organic light-emitting display that emits pixels and colors, and the output of which is internally reflected through 2 holograms into your eye. And now what happens is you don't see that anymore, but you see that. And if you had that to face, how would you feel about that? How would you feel to be able to see your children again, to see the things you loved? So what I want to leave you with is the notion that, pardon me, that there's an enormous amount of technology that is coming out of what's going on in warfare and in Silicon Valley. And it would be shameful for us not to say, how can we help and benefit?